Welcome to the Sleepers Media YouTube channel. That's Connor Hope. I'm Brian Rauf, both of Heat Check CBB here to talk about the undercard of the CBS Sports Classic in Atlanta, but still a pretty important game nonetheless. Ohio State and UCLA, Connor, two teams that have had some good performances this year, have also had some bad ones, both of whom I think are looking to pick up a momentum building kind of win and pick up something that gives them something of validation for their starts. Ohio State comes into this game at 8-2, has a win over Alabama, but we don't know how good Alabama really is. UCLA has not beaten a team that ranks in the KenPom top 250, but they have played Marquette and Gonzaga pretty close. So they probably need the win more than Ohio State does, but nonetheless, it's the two programs that are looking to have something to build upon, and this serves as the opportunity for both teams to get that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think Ohio State has outperformed our initial expectations so far this season. UCLA is about where I thought they would be, but and Greg calls this he's the body language PhD, but the vibes coming out of UCLA, specifically from head coach Mick Cronin, are not great.
Not good.
Are not great. You expect that the issues with UCLA are going to be their freshmen, and with the exception of Sebastian Mack, they have been. The freshmen have been, kind of more role players. But Sebastian Mack's been I don't even know if I'd call him the best player on this roster, but the highest usage player on this team. Dylan Andrews has not taken up the full mantle as this star point guard that I think you were expecting him to. So, what have you seen from UCLA that maybe can be fixed coming into this Ohio State game?
I think that's the tough part, because I don't know that there is any obvious fix aside from just people playing better. Right, like you mentioned, Dylan Andrews, he has not stepped up the way that they've needed him to. His production has increased from last season as he got into a bigger role, but he has not played like a top-end starting caliber point guard in the Pac-12, let alone in the country. So the step down from Tiger Campbell to him has been pretty steep. You were expecting an Mbona to take a big step forward as the guy come back for a sophomore season, and he has been fine, but he has not been great. He has not been this go-to guy. UCLA is a perfect example for me of a team that essentially is a collection of role players that you were expecting to have guys step forward, and no one has stepped forward. So the result is you saw this collection of role players with nobody to lead them or carry them. They're a good defensive team, but the offense struggles, and the big part of that's because you don't have anybody who can really go get you a bucket or be a consistent offensive threat. Bono can get you 13 a game, but to this point in the season, he hasn't gotten really more than that on a consistent basis. And that to me is UCLA's challenge is, okay, how can we develop these guys and get them to be more star-esque, or at least carry a bigger load?
Yeah, and I also think, for Bona, and I've watched that clip a lot, and I think Mick Cronin went about making a point the wrong way. Mm-hmm. But I think his point was valid. Adem Bona, especially given the competition that this UCLA team has played, should be a top 100 to top 150 rebounder in the country in terms of rebounding percentage. He's outside the top 350 or top 300, on offense, outside the top 150 on defense. He is a big, athletic man of a sophomore, and in the games they've played against good competition, whether it be Gonzaga or Villanova, Gonzaga's bigs are big. Gonzaga's bigs are skilled. I wouldn't call them athletic compared to Adem Bona. I know Mick Cronin wouldn't call anyone on Villanova athletic or big compared to Adem Bona. He should be controlling the boards at least to a pretty decent degree in those games, and he just hasn't. And I don't know what the hang up is, because heading into the end of last season, going into the tournament, Bona was a monster on the inside.
Right.
And he just hasn't been this year.
When he announced his return, the expectation was that this team was going to be built around him and he was going to be the star. And so the fact that he's struggling in an area he dominated last year, on top of the fact he is not playing offensively like that star, is not good. We talk about Tyrese Proctor of being somebody who had a clear progression and has now regressed to the point where he is not the guy that Duke fans or really anybody around the country thought he was going to be this season. Bona's kind of in the same boat where, he has not taken that big of a step back as Proctor did last year, or from the end of last season to the start of this season. But he has gone from being somebody who looked like he could be the guy to being a guy on a team that needs the guy to step up. We thought Ohio State might be in that situation this year with who they lost and some of the young guys they were counting on to play big roles and the way they were going to mix that. But they've seemed to have found a recipe that works. They're a great three-point shooting team. Zed Key is coming off the bench now, but he's still an elite rebounder. Bruce Thornton has been a really, really high-level offensive player for them. So flipping this to the Buckeyes, what has surprised you with them this season, and how do you stack up their chances against the Bruins?
I think their offense looks pretty good. They get to the rim. They shoot well from deep. And they draw fouls, which it's a recipe for success for any team. And to that point, like part of Adem Bona's issue so far this season in big games has been fouling. And that's not lost on me, right? He only had 4 rebounds against Gonzaga. He only had 8 against Villanova. He fouled out, I believe, against Villanova. He had 4 fouls against Gonzaga. So fouls have kept him kind of on the bench longer than you would like. He should still be out rebounding teams without needing to foul. I think, he should be able to defend teams without needing to foul, because he did that at points at the end of last year. And you expect bigs to kind of grow out of that as sophomores, and maybe he does by the time Pac-12 starts. But to Ohio State, it's sharing the ball. It's you look at Roddy Gale, you look at Bruce Thornton, you look at Jamison Battle, like they could all be considered the stars of this team, which really means that this team has no star, like they did last year. And I know we talked before the season, chicken or the egg. Was Sensabaugh taking over because he had to, or was the offense struggling because Sensabaugh was the crutch? And I don't know if we've gotten quite that answer yet, but it looks to be more of the second. Like this offense now is sharing the ball a lot better than it did last year. It's scoring the ball a lot more consistently than it did last year, outside of that run they had in the Big Ten tournament. And so I think between those 3, Zed Key, Dale Bonner, like this team is a good enough offensive team that they could give UCLA issues again, especially outside of those kind of top 3 players for the Bruins.
I think we'd be talking about this Ohio State team differently had they not blown that lead against Penn State in their last outing. And that's part of the reason why I think this game holds extra importance for them, is because this is an opportunity in a negative standpoint to really kind of backslide, having that Penn State loss and then going up against the UCLA team that has been struggling. If you asked this question a week and a half ago, I think Ohio State's the clear favorite in this game. Now that I think there are some questions after that Penn State loss, did that change your outlook for Ohio State at all, that loss to Penn State?
No, because I think that Penn State loss, like, I don't know, and you can correct me, I don't know if there's I don't know if there is a tougher conference to play on the road in than the Big Ten. We talk about the Big 12. Big 12 is fantastic. Mm-hmm. It has fantastic venues. One of the toughest conferences, probably the toughest conference in the country. But when you're talking about road games in conference, Big Ten just strikes me as different. Mm-hmm. And so Penn State being able to rally at home to beat an Ohio State team that, and I'm not saying Ohio State is great, they're just better than I thought they would be. but they were able to beat Alabama and Santa Clara, who's dropped off, but both of those on neutral floors. They lost to a good Texas A&M team, is their only other loss. So I don't know if my outlook necessarily changes, given that this is not a road game or a home game. Like, this is a neutral game, which is about as, just look at the teams as you can get.
Yeah. The only thing with that Penn State loss is they gave up almost 50 points in the last 15 minutes of that game. Like, that would be the one thing I'd look at essentially lingering is a defensive drop off, because that was what was the reason for that loss. I think they turned it over 16 times as well, which you don't want, but the defensive lapses hurt them for a team that has been pretty good on the defensive end this season. The good news for them is that UCLA has struggled offensively, as we talked about. So this might be more of a get right game for them, but we'll see. So looking ahead, let's hear your prediction. How do you think this ends up?
I think both teams bounce back. I still don't trust UCLA's backcourt to win these types of games. And I think that's where you're gonna, because I think Bona's gonna get in foul trouble again. He hasn't shown the ability to defend and rebound without fouling. So I think there's gonna be long stints of this game, end of the first half, portions of the second half, where Bona's pushed to the bench because he's in foul trouble. And these Ohio State guards kind of go to work attacking the rim. They can shoot the ball. I think it's going to be really close, because I do think that you're going to see a Mick Cronin and his team with a purpose. But I think Ohio State probably wins this game by 4 or 5 points. And it's probably a little bit wider for good portions of this game until probably the end, when, again, you're going to have UCLA pressuring, probably some free throws. Ohio State's not a bad free throw shooting team, but I think that slows the game down and allows UCLA maybe to get some easy buckets on the other end.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Buckeyes as well. I think it'll be a little bit more comfortable, somewhere in that 8 to 12 type range, multiple possession type win for the Buckeyes. I think UCLA is inevitably going to hit a stretch where they struggle to score for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and that allows Ohio State to create some separation and holds that throughout the rest of the game. I just trust Ohio State much more, but we'll see what happens, and make sure afterwards you come back to the Sleepers Media YouTube channel. We'll be back breaking down the results of that game and all the other big games on the weekend. Sleepers Media YouTube channel.